People are interested in spirituality, spirit communication, and so I want to say happy Halloween and welcome to our special little séance that we've got here. A lot of people get frightened about the word séance, but it's just bringing people together in like mind with a common purpose, and that's why we're here tonight, to share in the love, to come together as like-minded people to learn and to grow. So I want to welcome you. Teresa and I are so excited to celebrate answers from heaven with you and to connect with you all. So I want to, with no further ado, introduce Theresa Chung, who is our Sunday Times best-selling author, prolific, has written about 100 books. So I feel very honoured that she chose to write her next book with me. So I'm going to hand over to Teresa.
Thank you. Oh, yeah! Oh, thank you so much. And I'm very, very honoured here to be with this lovely lady, and you're going to learn all about her and why I chose her to collaborate on my next book, Claire Broad. Now, this bookshop was founded in 1883. Can you hear me over there? You sure? Founded 1883, the height of the Victorian times, when séances were all the rage, weren't they, Claire?
Absolutely.
They were the entertainment. Children, old people, all ages could gather together, and talking to dead people was not considered abnormal. And that's what I've made my mission of my life, to show the paranormal is normal. Now, I'm not asking us to go backwards, because I never think that we should go backwards. I'm trying to bring mediumship forward right to the present day, hence the role of Claire. And séances were so popular back then, as popular as mobile phones are today. And Claire's going to now speak a little bit about mobile phones and why it might be a good idea to turn them to silent as we start.
Yes, we thought this would make a good time just to say, please check your phones. You know, you're making my job easy if I can get the messages from Spirit through your phones, all right? So we turn them off, and the messages or the feelings that we want of communication tonight are not going to be through technology. We're going to, do you know, we're going to connect with one another. There's a novel idea. In person. Okay.
Okay, everyone, thank you. Now, we've got very sceptical in modern times about the idea of the paranormal, about talking to the other side, about having an ongoing relationship with spirit. And I actually, although I write about the paranormal, I have written, people know me, I have written so many books about the paranormal and the psychic world. It's ridiculous. I'm a bit of a serial writer. And I've had moments of great doubt. But there are some rare people I've found along the way who have this ability to somehow connect to the other side. And what I've found actually is these people, yes, they are rare, but what they've done is they've trained. Mediumship is a skill. A lot of people think you just wake up one morning and you hear all that, and that does happen spontaneously. It's happened to me 1 or 2 times, but not regularly. And the reason it hasn't happened regularly, as it should, is I've devoted my passion to my writing, to other things, to research, to academica, etc. That's where my focus has been. People like Claire, however, her focus has been on honing her talent to have afterlife communication. This lady has sat in a development circle for years, and 20 plus years, sorry, don't give away your age, Claire, she's so young, has week in, week out, has been giving demonstrations to sold out theatres, to churches, quietly in the shadows. There are so many people like that, and they fear to put their head above the parapet a bit because of the criticism that they get. Because we live in such a sceptical age. I know that because I'm now on social media, and goodness gracious, you would not have believed the abuse. And I've made it my mission to try and champion people like Claire who are working from the heart. Anyone who knows Claire, and I know some of her friends were here, will know she is the most honest and decent person that you could find. Truly gifted lady in spirit. And I'm talking too much here because that's Claire, but she's going to tell you a little bit how she started her journey as a medium and her beginning.
Yes, because the thing is, like Teresa was saying, many people misunderstand the fact. They think that we just wake up, mediums can just see dead people everywhere, a bit like, you know, films and Hollywood, making it seem like you're just walking around speaking to the other side. Yeah. It doesn't work that way. And my mission and in standing in front of you is to try and get you to realise that I am not special. All that happened was I paid attention to the signs that were happening around me. We all have that connection with spirit. The reason that I knew was because when I was 4, I had a very profound experience as I look back. At the time, obviously, I didn't know it was profound. And if you just entertain me a little bit while I tell you a little bit about my life. When I was 4, I was standing in Richmond Cemetery with my nan and my mum, who were tidying up my granddad's plot. And I was busy playing in a corner. There was a vase there were some stones and a tap for, you know, obviously feeding flowers and keeping everything nice and hydrated. And I was playing with that because, to be quite honest, it's not that entertaining being in a cemetery when you're 4. So I was in my own little world. It was absolutely fine. And then suddenly I felt my granddad come around me. Now, how do you explain that other than there was a knowing at 4 years old? There just was a knowing. The beauty of that contact was I had no need to believe in an afterlife. I hadn't built a relationship with my granddad, unfortunately, where I needed to hear from him. He died when I was 3. My only memory of him was in his deathbed, unfortunately. I hadn't built that rapport. But there he was, all around me. I felt the essence of him, his personality, and the love that was coming forward, and the urgency in that communication. I heard the words, "Claire, tell Nanny, Grandad says, I love you, Ive." And I said, I'm not going to say that. I'm playing. Because I was young. What sticks with me is I never questioned, oh, is that a dead person talking to me? You know, you just accept as a child. And as we get into adulthood, this is where the analytical mind comes in and the logic. But at that age, it was real, and I just wasn't interested. And so he repeated the message, "Tell Nanny, Grandad says I love you, Ive." And because I became a little bit irritated, I stood up and said, "Oh, Nanny, Grandad says I love you, Ive." And I remember to this day, by that point, my mum and my nan were standing at a gateway getting ready to leave, and the look on their face was just pure gobsmacked. Because the thing that I found out later was my nan, was known as Connie because her name was Ivy, but she didn't like it. It reminded her of poison ivy, so she made everyone call her Connie, which was her middle name. And only my granddad called her Ive. So I didn't know that because she was Nanny to me, and I heard my mum call her mum. So this was significant, and this is something I want to leave you with. Sometimes the purest messages from the spirit world aren't names, addresses, details. It's the little things that defy logic that you can think, and my nan did, she knew. My granddad had been there that day. She was 92 when she died, and she talked of it right up to her own deathbed. It had that much of a profound impact. So that was my introduction. I had a very normal life after that. I still think I do, until I started training and spent 10 years. I will talk a bit more about that later, but 10 years of training. So Teresa's right. It doesn't just happen.
It's normal. And of course, if you're like me, it isn't normal, because I would long to have that kind of experience. Now, I've had moments and flashes of intuition, powerful dreams, sometimes heard voices, but I've always second-guessed it and doubted it. But it's my passion, so that's why I've written book after book about it. And I've been longing to find someone that I could powerfully endorse, but I kind of got a bit cynical in a way with what I saw on offer. And I determined a couple of years ago to try and change that. And the first way I tried to do that was to answer the critics who say there's no science to this. And I started to interview neuroscientists, doctors, holistic doctors, everything, and invite them onto my Facebook page to talk about their research into the survival of consciousness after death. There is science out there, we're just not hearing about it. The gap between science and spirit, as Claire also is very well versed in, is closing in so fast. But that's another talk, the science of afterlife communication. But I'm telling you, if you're interested, it is it's mind-opening. It truly is. It's so exciting. I couldn't be more happy to be born in this lifetime when this is all happening. But the scientific community doesn't like it to be out there, but it is. And I'm meeting more and more scientists. In fact, my next book, I'm going to collaborate with a scientist called Dr Julie Beischel and Dr Dean Radin, who are working in this field. So that's very, very exciting for me. So that was the first thing I wanted to counter, and I think I did. I brought it onto my Facebook page, and this was quite new at the time, and the reaction was amazing. First of all, you got the naysayers and the skeptics, as you do, but it started to fade away, and people were like scratching their heads, saying there is something there. So that was the first thing. The second thing I wanted to do is I wanted to invite a medium onto my page who was credible, because there's so many people say all the arguments, they're frauds, they're deluded. It's all about money. It's all about ego. And I must admit, sadly, in our community, sometimes that does happen. Anyway, I'm not judging here or anything, but I have been a bit disillusioned myself. So I kind of went on a search, because inviting a medium on my page, I can tell you, was a very scary thing to do, because of the community I'd built up after 22 years writing books and encyclopedias, some of which have been Sunday Times bestsellers. So I was able to bring the paranormal into the mainstream audience, and doing this I knew was a great risk. But I truly believe the spiritual life is one of evolution, and I'd rather lose followers and feel that I'm evolving than constantly write the same book over and over again and live the same year of my life over and over again. It's easy to choose the comfortable road, and I took a big risk in doing this. Why Claire? Because I went to her demonstration, and as you will see in a minute when she starts the séance, we will start in a minute, you will understand. You're all spiritual people here, otherwise you wouldn't be here. You will understand what I saw and why I thought someone like this needed to have a platform. It wasn't easy convincing her, because like most true psychics, spiritualists, mediums, whatever you want to call them, intuitives, they prefer to be under the radar, because they're worried that exposure will pollute their gift. It is a vocation and a calling. And I'll answer a few of the charges. Fraud, well, when you see her séance, or if you go to one of her demonstrations, you will know that's not the case. Doing it for the money, I can tell you, it's she's laughing. They earn peanuts, if anything like that. She had a very successful career in advertising prior to this. There's no reason for her to do this. She's also a happily married mother. She's not insane, as you will see. She's just the real deal in my eyes, and I want her to start this, because it must be nerve-wracking for her standing here with everybody waiting and me blathering on. But if you've seen our Facebook Lives, we do. We're very serious at the moment. But
we are serious, aren't we, normally?
Just before I introduce, I want to say thank you so much for coming, every single one of you. You may not know it, but you are meant to be here. You were called here for a reason, and I hope that you will go away feeling connected to departed loved ones, or if you're still sceptical, and that's fine, we're fine with skeptics, at least you will have opened your mind and thought, well, what if? Because that is the most powerful question in the world. What if? Too many people think they know the answer. So many people say to us, there is no life after death. And I just say, how do you know? There is no proof. How do you know? Give me your proof there is no life after death. Have you been to the other side? Well, I've talked to people like Dr. Alexander, who we met, who have been to the other side. Anita Morjani, I had the privilege of spending time with. Very credible people. Anyway, if you could just now, for a few seconds, just gather your thoughts and think of departed loved ones, or the possible survival of your spirit into the next life, that would really help set the mood. So we're just going to have a few minutes of silence where you think of your loved ones. I assure you there's nothing evil here. You've all come in here with a spirit of love and curiosity, and that's what spirit feeds on. So if we could just have a few minutes whilst I sit down and shuffle about here, and I hope I don't fall over, so that Claire can gather herself and then open up this séance, and hopefully every one of you will get a message that you're meant to hear.
So as we sit and stand even in that lovely energy, I want you to imagine that your loved ones are coming close. I want you to know that I can feel within this room such energy and love coming from your loved ones that I actually know that I could probably go into many readings, but the trouble that we have is that we don't have the time for that. And also because I haven't gained permission, and this talk is being filmed, it would be inappropriate to give individual messages tonight, because in the time that we've got, I would have time for maybe one. So I'm going to do something slightly different, because many people believe that mediumship is just relaying messages from loved ones to loved ones here, relaying messages. But mediumship is so much more than that. And on this night, All Hallows Eve, where the veil between the two worlds is supposed to be at its thinnest anyway, we can bring in loving beings that are in the spirit world that are wise, higher knowledge. We can bring in spirit guides and helpers. And as I speak to you, the energy of my voice brings in my guides and teachers. And I'm going to give you a message that I hope speaks to you all in your hearts, because that will reach you all. You will all have something to go home with. And I feel the presence of well, I call them ascended masters and higher beings, and that they start to come forward, and before you know it, I don't know what I'm saying. I want you to know that this part of this evening is not planned. I haven't tried to work out what I'm going to say. I have asked that in your own ways you feel that connectedness with spirit, and I'm asking now that perhaps your loved ones can come close to where you are. Maybe you'll feel a gentle touch. Some people report feeling a kiss. Others feel like they get tingly sensations on their head, little blasts in the face, or cobwebbing, which sounds spooky and really isn't. It's just a way of your loved ones allowing you to know that they are there whilst I speak. And I know that this message that is supposed to reach you now is one of about heaven. Now, I don't use the word heaven, but the word heaven is being given to me. Teresa is the heaven lady. She's the one who talks about the angels in heaven. I tend to call it spirit life, or consciousness surviving physical death. But how do we know that our loved ones are with us? How can we know that the spirit world is real? And how can we all, in our own ways, tap into heaven for ourselves? Well, as I speak to you, I'm seeing here in my mind interdimensions. So as I talk, I often see clairvoyantly, and as they drop concepts and information into my mind, I'm seeing interdimensions. And I feel here impressed to say to you that we already live in a world that is interdimensional. And when you think about that, what's coming to me here is that we think that this material world that we have is solid. I can touch things, I can touch you, I can touch the table, and we believe this to be solid. But actually, it isn't solid. We are all living in many realms at once. Science shows us that this that we think is material is not actually material at the level of the quantum level, that is fluid. And so already we are living and crossing dimensions. We are not in one reality. We are already living in many realities. What about the reality of the dream state? You as a person are already crossing boundaries with your mind. The only thing that makes this seem real and your only reality is your perception of it. And my guides tell me that perception is everything, that our minds and awareness are what make us believe that this is all there is. But actually I'm hearing here, believe is be live, be alive. Your reality is much greater than what you experience here now. You are infinite consciousness surviving in a physical body right here, right now. And so it is possible to be in different realities all at once. When you come to die and your physical body passes on, then you will just seamlessly transition into a different realm of reality, just like you do when you go to sleep. Just like, how many of you are aware that within your body are trillions of cells all operating, that are not aware of your conscious mind, but that make up you? And that, do we think about that all the time? No, we don't pay attention to it at all. We just go about our daily lives. But there's another aspect of us there, isn't there? Our mind bridges many worlds, many realities, and the realm of spirit is just another one of those natural places for us to exist. And yet, many of us deny that reality. And how can you know heaven for yourself? Heaven is a state of being, it is not a destination. You can have heaven here. Heaven is in your heart. You are spirit. I'm telling you here, we are all here with many spirit beings, not just our departed loved ones. The person sitting next to you is a spirit being, and we must change our perception of how we see ourselves and how we understand consciousness. I have a dream that one day we will understand that we are much more than what we are already at the moment. And many of you will already be on that journey and seeking that knowledge for yourself and have that knowing. And they say that the bridge between the two worlds is at the heart. And so if you can go into your heart, if you can find the stillness, if you can still your mind and turn off the distractions of everyday life, if you can switch off from the pressures and the perception that we're under, that we need to live in a world where we are consuming all the time, and find that peace and stillness, then you will access a heavenly state of being. And let me tell you, it's addictive. I have now come to the point where if I do not take time to connect in with soul and spirit, then I feel unplugged. I feel less joy in my life. And the spirit guides and helpers and your loved ones want you to feel love and peace in your life. They return to us not to just give messages of evidence, but to speak to your hearts here, now, to awaken you to a greater reality. There is nothing to fear. There is only love. Your loved ones return to you because they love you. But there is also the fear within you that you are a finite being, and that if you allow yourself to embrace this message, that you are somehow allowing all your intelligent faculties to be thrown out of the window. But the true communication with spirit is one that you sense and feel. It's a knowing. It's experiencing my words and knowing that this isn't coming from me. This is coming from a greater space. I am not the important person in this message. These words come to you because right now they are needed for you. And somewhere I know there will be people in this room who hear this message and will feel inspired to seek or to learn what spirit is. All the religions ask us to come into contact with spirit. And yet, somehow mediumship and the communion with your loved ones is downplayed, and you are told that it is fearful. There is nothing fearful about what I'm saying to you now. Hopefully you can feel the love and the passion and the drive coming forward. So I'm going to leave you with this. Remember that heaven is a state of being. As you connect into that stillness and peace and you find that way to connect with spirit in your own unique ways, know that it is this that you take with you to your next world, to your next life as you move on. That it is the greatest treasure that you can build on earth, is to allow yourself to find your own stillness and connection with spirit, to connect with the joy that comes with that. And then when you do that, I promise you, you too can feel the essence of your loved ones and the great wisdom and knowledge that comes with that. Thank you so much for listening.
channeling. None of this is ever prepared, and she does this week in, week out. The knowledge that seems to come, it is absolutely incredible. And it wasn't so, if you go to one of her demonstrations, you will see her zone in on one person in the audience. Obviously you can't do that because this is going on YouTube. And I can tell you, I've witnessed that as well. She can't remember, that's the funny thing, she can't remember afterwards what she said. But I have seen these people come in etched with grief and then leaving feeling lighter and joyful because she's able to say something. Sometimes it's a name. Sometimes I once went to a demonstration when she somehow knew that the adopted mother came through. There's no way of her knowing this, and I know for a fact that she didn't know this. She's able to bring in information that is beyond reasonable doubt. So I do urge you to go to her demonstrations and see her working individually, or to book in a reading, although it's very hard. She's booked over 1.5 years in advance, I believe, because so many people have had such great comfort. And I'm trying not to make this evening about Claire, to make her, it's not what she wants at all. People think she's doing this to be a star or whatever. It's not. It's about the message. And it's the message I've devoted my life to. This life is not all there is. Something about us goes on. And anyone who's dearly loved someone, or an animal, or anything that any person that they've truly loved, they will know when that person dies, a part of that person does live on. And anyone who says, oh, that's hogwash, I say, have you dreamt of that person you've lost? And they say, well, yes. And I say, that's an afterlife communication already. Often that's how spirit goes through. But her message is, we don't go to heaven, we grow. You're in heaven right now. This life is just an amazing miracle. It truly is. Soak in every experience, even the bad ones. I know that's hard to say, but you learn more sometimes from unhappiness and darkness than you do from happiness. If we're all constantly happy, as Claire says, maybe it's not all happiness in heaven. They're learning too. She says the learning goes on. That as long as you're learning something new and you keep that mind open and you don't shut down and say, I know. I can tell you death is when you say, I know. And it breaks my heart when people say, I know you're wrong. I'm right. There is no life after death. Or my religion's right. You're wrong. That is death, and that's not how the planet evolves. I'm just going to close this so that we can go on to the second part of our talk with a kind of a blessing prayer. I hate using that word because it's so associated with religion, and religion and spirituality are different, but it's something just to kind of close down the energy a little bit. Thank you, Spirit World, for your love and wisdom. We appreciate the flow of light energy here and will use it for the highest good. We'll close this séance now and ask eternal love to surround us, remain with us, and constantly remind us we are spiritual beings having a human experience, not human beings having a spiritual experience. May we all become beacons of spiritual light to remind others that death ends a life and not a relationship. And that's our mantra, isn't it? Death ends a life and not a relationship. And now, yes, we are here to talk about our book. But it's not a big sales drive. It's how else can we get our message across? We both work tirelessly on our Facebook pages, just from the heart. But a book is very powerful because a lot of people like to hold a book in their hand or their Kindle. It's a permanent record, a symbol of what we stand for. So we are going to talk about our book now, and I'm going to hand that to Claire because we work so closely on this book together. I'd like you to talk about it. Tell you, I mean, she was in the Sunday Mirror, weren't you? And on podcasts, the papers have gone wild. Her recent feature in the Sunday Mirror was the 3rd most read online feature this year. And showing, it's so exciting for me because it shows that there is this thirst. And it's horrible, the cynical way that there is this thirst, and I'm on the right track. And Claire's definitely that. Anyway, talk about that.
No, I'm glad you're talking because, to be honest, I'm feeling very space. There's so much energy in here.
I know, it's because of the like-minded people, isn't it?
It's lovely, it's wonderful, and I don't want to come across looking completely batty. I would like to be able to back that up with the evidence of survival. I'm afraid you're going to have to, as Teresa says, come and see me. I'm at spiritualist churches
free of charge. They're not. You don't have to pay.
You can come and see. No, exactly. So come and see me at work and let me demonstrate for you so you can see the other side to mediumship. The thing is, that's the side to mediumship that gives people the trust so that when they hear the channeling or hear the information coming through from higher self, that they can trust in that as well. So this book is a complete joy for me. I am so passionate about trying to get across to people that mediumship, spirit communication, our connection with spirit is normal. There is nothing to fear, and we all have a story. Honestly, I would be rich if I had £1 for every time my clients came in. Every one of them shares their experiences. If it hasn't been a direct experience for them, it's that their family members have got a story that they've passed through down the line of knowing or experiencing spirit communication. We all have that story, and yet we don't share. This message is bigger than Teresa and I. This isn't about the people giving the message. This is about us sharing with you and opening a dialogue, asking you to question, does consciousness survive physical death? I am not a medium who stands here saying, I know. I will never say that. I am trying to open an honest dialogue with you all. I don't know 100% because I cannot scientifically prove it to you.
Yet.
Yet. However, I can give you an experience. Mediums try to give you an experience. There is different types of evidence. Evidence in scientific form with data, and evidence that you experience for yourself and you know goes beyond reasonable doubt for you. And so as I speak, I come from there, but I encourage everyone to question everything I'm saying. I do not want people to believe me. I want people to come and find for themselves, to open their own dialogue. So this book I'm so passionate about because it brings three voices together.
There's another lady here. She's in here in spirit, but she's in the States, and she wrote the foreword.
That's right. Dr Julie Beischel has studied mediums, and she has found scientifically that she
was in the pharmaceutical industry, and she was testing drugs, and she decided, didn't she, why not test mediums like that, but not celebrity mediums? Let's go and find mediums who work in spiritualist churches who are behind. Sorry, I'm interrupting you. But it's just so exciting.
We like to bounce.
We do. We always we argue a lot as well. But anyway, what I'm saying is, she said, you test a drug. Let's do a medium the same way. Let's test them scientifically, rigorously. She's not biased, because when I interviewed her, which I did, she said, it doesn't matter to me, Teresa, whether I believe or not is irrelevant. I test mediums their stories as data. There's too much anecdotal evidence out there, and I'm collecting it as data, and I'm going to test these mediums. Her research is mind-blowing. Featured in the New York Times, wasn't it, Elle? Recently in Goop. I don't know whether that's an endorsement. But anyway, it's really, and she's doing much more research now, but she's not going for big name mediums. She's going for the ones quietly who just work behind the scenes like Claire.
But the shame of it is that most of us wouldn't read a scientific book because it would be too hard going. So bringing answers from heaven to you means we can bring the voice of the scientist, we can bring the voice of the researcher, and we can bring the voice of the practitioner to you. It's not an
the Windbridge Institute, isn't it? She runs a place, the Windbridge.org.
Windbridge Research Centre.
Yeah, it's a proper research centre. She's a proper scientist studying this. Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. So what I'm trying to say is this book isn't an autobiography. It's not selling you an idea. It's opening a dialogue and asking you to come and explore all the many angles and to try and raise awareness. And it's everyday people's stories. So Teresa starts the book by talking about how the spirit world communicate with us directly, and you talk about the signs.
Well, I'm for people who aren't, maybe haven't trained as much as Claire. There are a lot of us, we have other callings. So the first half of the book, you could skip with that if you find that. It's a kind of a typical, almost afterlife heaven book of people who've written to me with wonderful stories about afterlife communication or coincidences or dreams that have changed their life. Near-death experiences are in there. There's animal communication. We actually have the lady here who sent wonderful stories about animals, Tina Reid, who runs animaltranquility.co.uk. Amazing. And we also, I think we have Tanya here, don't we? Tanya, are you here? I'm not sure. Yeah, she is. Her stories in there, Tanya Poppleton. Stories of ordinary people who maybe haven't trained, but have had their lives turned around and believe. So the first half of the book, it's a book of two halves, is about that. It's a collection of that, and I bring in the science for you, and I talk about what it's like being someone like me, who so believes but doesn't have maybe this vocation that Claire has. And then the book gets really good because we go over to her part, which she wrote all herself. And this lady's so incredible. She's never written before. I mean, this is about book 110 for me. I am a serial writer, trust me. This is her first book. I didn't have to edit a thing. It was almost automatic. It's almost automatic writing, wasn't it?
Well, because
dream to work with, absolutely.
We have to share, don't we, how this book came about.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Because it was like automatic writing. This book is spirit-led. What happened to me was, for 20 years, when I went in to learn how to be a medium, other mediums kept telling me, the spirit world want you to write for them, you're going to write a book for them. And I was saying, no, that's not me. I am one who likes to hide in the shadows. I have a very happy, very domestic life. It doesn't come natural to want to stand up in front of everyone. But the message kept coming. And then I was receiving insights myself. And I actually thought the spirit world wanted me to take up automatic writing. I was a bit dense, so I was sitting there for a long time.
Thought about it, but you have this on tape. She has this on tape about 2 years.
I didn't think about writing a book. And I sat there trying to learn to write, to channel. And I'm a bit lazy. Anyway, the messages started to build in urgency because the spirit world was saying, we need this message now. It's very important with what's going on in the world. People need this message in their life. We've got to get back to connecting to our own spirit. And culminated in a medium giving me an absolutely amazing message, which basically said, you are to step out of the shadows. You have been given this knowledge. Put your head above the parapet. You are to write. You are going to be online at first, you must learn the science, and it is now. And she finished by saying, they always get what they want, love. And I rolled up laughing because I just thought, well, yeah, I've been saying that for 20 years and I haven't done it yet for you, have I? And a week later, I kid you not, from out of the blue, Theresa Chung emails me, I'm a best-selling afterlife author, would you please come and help me on my Facebook page online? And that
bitterly regret putting her on there. She's more popular than I am. And you can see, no, it's true, sorry.
You can see why I'm so passionate, because I know this is coming from somewhere larger than myself, okay?
Yeah.
And so I have listened to that calling and I've answered.
But it was
spirit.
also a good training ground, wasn't it, going on that page? Because literally, when I put a medium on, this was 2 years ago, Facebook was like, oh my goodness, we got such abuse. But we kind of learned then how to handle it and to answer back. And we're both, hopefully, I think, highly intelligent. I mean, my background, I have a master's in theology from Cambridge. Claire, is, as you see, is incredibly intelligent. When we were able to converse with them scientifically and enter into a dialogue, weren't we?
That's right.
And we got so much.
We welcome the questioning.
We don't mind people saying you're a fraud or this is for the money. I mean, we've got a great answer for that now, haven't we? I mean, priests, they get paid, right? Why is it so wrong for a medium to get a fee for what she does? I mean, she could do, it's like, do you want to talk about that? Now's a chance to say something.
Well, we do actually, it's a good point, because in the book there is a whole chapter on all the questions that people want to ask mediums, the difficult ones. Why do you charge? Why do you make money? Where do I go to learn? How can I learn this for myself? Why can't you give me the lottery numbers? All the normal things.
Yeah, everything's in there for you to understand why.
And a medium really is a medium's done their job. If they're tapping you into that connection, if you then start the dialogue for yourself, it isn't about, I will have done my job if I'm not needing anymore, to be honest.
She doesn't allow people to visit her repeatedly, 1 or 2 times, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah. And so in my mind, I'm doing, in a sense, what a vicar does, or a person of faith, in as much as they are getting paid to obviously educate, to speak, to do an address like I've just done, to inspire. But that's okay. But it's not okay for me to do that. But there you are. We'll change things.
We will. And the appendix of the book has all that, plus some free gifts. Claire's done some meditations. I've got some, because I collaborate with the Institute of Noetic Sciences in the States, and there's some free gifts, which they very kindly given to all Teresa Chung readers, for you to explore and to get access to their library. There's the appendix is actually, and Dr Julie Beischel has written a kind of an academic, but a very fascinating essay on her research into mediumship.
Her process for testing mediums is stringent, and we really need to help champion her. So hopefully between the 3 of us, this book is completely unique, and different, and one that I know you can tell that we're proud of.
Thank you so much for choosing love over fear, and for having the curiosity to just come and listen. And if you have questions and you disagree with us, we welcome that. The dialogue is, if you're talking about spirit, we feel we've won. And you may go away thinking, it's a load of baloney. We respect that. We respect all opinions.
Everybody's got their own way and their own path.
That's your journey, and for whatever reason you need to go through that. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm not saying we're right.
No, that's the last thing we want. We don't want to say we are right, because the minute you take that position, you are wrong.
So as soon as you say, I know everything, start worrying. That's when you start worrying. Just always have, that's why children, they say, are so close to heaven. That wonderful curiosity that any moment something magical is going to happen. That's the way to live. And I think she kind of embodies that. And I hope that comes across in the book. And I hope the book makes a dialogue between you and us as well, that we can continue this dialogue and keep bringing this message out to the world. And the spirit world is about love and giving. So in the spirit of that, we actually have a little goodie bag. So Claire, if you could pass yours round.
Okay. Do you want to take one and pass one?
If you could take one and pass it round as we talk during the question and answer, just one each.
So I'm giving out a what?
No, you did that last.
Oh, sorry.
One, you get two in this one. If you are allergic to chocolate or pregnant, sorry, no. There's a little sunflower in here, and I'll explain about that, and a chocolate, just to something, and I'll tell you why I wanted to do the sunflower for me, and then Claire will talk about the feather. The chocolate and the sunflower is to remind you that heaven is vibrant and joyful. That's our theme, sunflowers. The cover of the book is all sunflowers. It's vibrant. We want to change this perception that it's all morbid and serious. There is a lot of laughter and humour from the other side, I believe.
Absolutely, they're more alive, and they say that it's more alive than here. So.
And the sunflower is just a symbolic reminder, so that you take a bit away this evening. Whenever you're feeling low or you're missing someone in spirit, that's to remind you that they are content there. They are where they're meant to be. And that's just a symbol to remind you, hopefully of this evening, so that it just reminds you about that ongoing connection. And Claire will talk a bit about the feather now.
Yes, so I'm handing out a white feather because part of the journey in the book is my story about how I met my spirit guide, which takes a lot of guts for me to own that publicly, because there are many people that will think, oh, you're absolutely crackers, aren't you?
I laughed at that. I love the spirit guide thing is something, and especially, and Claire's husband is here today, and I'd like to know what you feel about her spirit guide.
So
there are three of you in your relationship. Sorry.
There are three of us. So my spirit guide said
that very attractive.
His name was White Feather. So that's why you're getting a white feather, because he comes in peace. But I also know that feathers mean something particularly to you all. Feathers are often a sign of the spirit world. People write to us all the time telling us that they've seen feathers, or that it reminds them of angels. Did you know that the Egyptian culture used the feather, the white feather, to balance when you were passing over whether you have led your life well? The sign of the white feather in Egyptian culture was a sign of truth. And so this is what we bring to you, an honest conversation and truth. So the white feather denotes that, and hopefully that'll have some message for you in there too. So that's the idea.
Thank you, guys. And if you've got any questions now, we'd love to spend some time answering them. So anyone got any questions?
That's a really good question. Thank you. I believe mediumship is genetic, because my nan that I spoke about earlier, she actually could see the spirit world. They were so clear to her, she didn't even know that they were in the room until they walked through a wall or something. And actually what we didn't know was my mum traced back our family tree and discovered that my nan's nan was a medium. So there definitely is something genetic in this, I have no doubt.
There's studies on that, on psychic ability passing down from families. And I know I came from a family of psychics and mediums and spiritists. It must have skipped a generation for me, however it manifested in a different way, in a thirst for understanding the meaning of life and the paranormal. But I know that I also descended.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is the Institute of Noetic Sciences, they're also studying whether mediumship is genetic.
Yeah,
so the scientists are looking at it now, because whether you call it mediumship or shamanism, this is ancient. It's been around since the dawn of time. It's not going anywhere. So we do need to try and understand it. Anyone else?
Is that side of things separate from your normal life?
That's something I'd love to know as well. I've often thought about that with you. How do you switch off from white feather?
Okay, so I describe it as if you can imagine that you're watching television, the BBC or ITV, these TV channels, they are the signals are in the ether all the time, but you're only aware of it when you actually switch the box on. So for me, I'm not walking around aware of the spirit world all the time. I live a very normal life. So when I tune into that frequency or energy, I become aware of it. But for the rest of the time, as I'm switched off, I'm able to live a very normal, very grounded life.
I wouldn't say it's normal, Claire.
No, it is. It is very normal. But it's so normal because our book is full of these stories of everybody having these experiences. I know you all have your stories. I'd love to hear them. You know, I am leading a very normal life. I'm just paying attention.
Yeah. It's learning how to do that, and you'll hopefully give some tips about how to do that as well.
And that's in the book, isn't it?
And it's so easy when life is busy and stressed, and we are here to have the earthbound experience as well, so maybe for some of us that's not our journey. It is easy to sort of miss the psychic cues and the signs that are out there, isn't it?
I always say the only difference between me and yourselves perhaps is that I acted upon those signs, and I was curious enough to go and learn whether I can actually do that.
In development?
I was 10 years in development, still 20 years now, still sitting in development.
I forgot to say you are qualified. There is such a thing as a mediumship qualification. I didn't know that actually. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, I'm qualified with the Institute of Spiritualist Mediums, who are a body who are set up to try and make sure that certain standards are met, certain codes of conduct, and that we as mediums are working to that, to try and raise the standards, because obviously, unfortunately, this isn't regulated and anybody can call themselves a medium, because I'm trying to tell you that we all are, but it's trying to find the ones who are working with integrity, being honest, not trying to oversell something and make false promises, and I buy into that, and I'm passionate about trying to bring that message out. The lady in the corner, I don't want to forget you. What were you going to ask? I'm trying to champion it. Spiritualism is a recognised religion in this country, and we should have that right to stand up for it. And it's very complicated with the church closures, but
it's a bit like libraries closing, though, isn't it? It's like books and libraries. Maybe it's just evolution that we need to find other ways to gather and to move forward. As I said, library closures also deeply upset people who love books. And what we're doing here actually is really exciting. Maybe that's the future. And chat rooms. I mean, Zuckerberg recently said that
we do need to look at those. And we need to look at... And we do need to look at... Oh,
spirit.
Here we go. Someone doesn't agree.
So if somebody is, some people are interested in that.
They can come and see you.
Well, I'm a forced. I can be a force, but it's just where I'm going
with it. I have already been, personally, I've already been working on supporting this. I know about it. I've already added my name to the petition, and I've been involved. But of course, it's not about... Okay. But this message for me is about spiritualism, but it's about getting the people in the country that wouldn't go into a church also embracing this message.
Are you religious, Claire?
I'm not religious, I'm spiritual, so my pleasure, thank you. I don't see myself as religious, no, I don't.
There's a big difference.
But I can get a lot of deep satisfaction from many of the religions, because ultimately they're all speaking the same. We are all one, love matters and life goes on, and I can take that from everything.
Yeah. No, that's fine. Thank you for making that point. I also signed the petition. I am aware of it. But I also know that maybe the future is, as I said, Zuckerberg recently said online that he'd like chat rooms and people who run pages to be almost like pastors of a church. And I thought, how exciting is that potentially? We do live in an online world now. And you can connect with Claire at any time, and she answers all her messages on her Facebook page.
Yes,
You know,
it's
there's
a community in that way,
you've
isn't
built
it?
up there of people who are talking about spirit.
Mm.
Same with my page. It's a wonderful way to have an immediate contact and to get that sense of community. Yes, it's not the same as meeting a person, but that's the way the world is going at the moment. So maybe spirit needs to go, and spirit had been kind of away from the internet, hadn't it? And we're trying to bring that in, and people are responding.
And actually, when you think about the Victorian era, people were bringing the spirit into their home, weren't they? They were gathering where there was love, where they felt safe, and they were exploring it. And you know, spiritualist churches most definitely have their place, and I work in them, and I wouldn't be here without them. And it's a place to go and learn for not much money at all, but also it goes, like anything, beyond the church doors, doesn't it? Coming into the home and bringing it into everyday life, and that's what I'm trying to do. Okay. Anybody else? No? There are many resources in the book, but on my Facebook, come and connect with me. You'll see where I am. You can ask me questions. I do Facebook Live so people can interact with me, because I actually think that lots of people really want to just know about mediumship. They don't necessarily. I know lots of people don't want to always receive a message, and you know, tonight wasn't just about obviously ticking that box. It's about opening the dialogue. So please do.
Showing you the face of modern mediumship. Someone who you could imagine sitting down with Claire having a cup of coffee or tea. You don't drink coffee, do you? I'm the coffee drinker. You
a glass
can see.
of wine.
But you know, I mean, it's someone you could just sit down with, and taking away that woo, that nutty vibe that people have around mediums, that the media.
And just creating a space where we're all safe to share our own experiences, because I know you've got your own. That's why I know you're asking. I can feel spirit coming in. Honestly, I could really start. I can't. We're out of time. But please do. Okay. Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah.
If you have the gift of being able to feel or communicate with people who have passed over, but you have experiences where troubled ones come to you and want to be helped to pass over, but you don't really want to do that, where can you go to ask for help and say, please could somebody else help this soul, you know?
In spirit.
Yeah.
So there is the Spirit Release Forum in London, and they actually work just in this way. Spirit release is about it. The whole thing about mediumship is it's therapeutic, and I wish people could see it as a therapy. It helps people move through their grief, but it also helps those in the spirit world. And the Spirit Release Forum, they actually work in that way therapeutically with those who are choosing not to move forward because they're choosing to stay here for whatever reason. And so if you look them up, you will, that's a whole different aspect to it, to mediumship and the whole subject actually. But have a look to them, the Spirit Release Forum. There's many people working in that way, trying to help both spirit and here, because it isn't just about us, it's about the spirit world.
And it's often people say, aren't you just prolonging the grief? That's something that Claire, you can answer so powerfully. People say visiting a medium is just prolonging the grief, you're not getting over it. First of all, for me personally, I think a lot of people who've lost someone dear, a child, a loved one, a husband, a wife, a daughter, a son, they don't want to forget that person. They want to have some way of having an ongoing relationship, don't they? And that's what a medium does, shows that you can, in spirit, still go on with your life, living it to the full, but still having that person in your heart. And that's what Claire can help you do. It's incredibly healing. It's not prolonging the grief. If you could maybe articulate that.
I think the thing is whether you believe mediumship is a fact or not, or whether there is an afterlife or not, which none of us can say we know 100% for sure, can we? But the fact of the matter is mediumship helps. And people move through their grief in a way that sometimes they get stuck. Many people feel that if they forget their dearest loved ones by moving on and embracing life, which is precious, that they are dishonouring the memory of the person that they love.
Not at all.
The spirit world, those that come back teach us, they want us to live a full life,
and happy life.
their memory. And I have found that it's complete opposite. Many of the criticism is it's holding people, coming back for messages, stopping them moving on. No, when done properly, it helps people to have peace of mind, frees them up to enjoy their life and to move on, knowing that their loved ones are wanting that for them.
Exactly.
It is, then Dr Julie Beischel is working on this very much. She has worked with people who, she has studied both grief counselling and mediumship and found that they are very effective if they're brought together, and she's championing that. So
Wasn't there
it's a
also
good point.
at the University of Northampton, I think Cal Cooper, his
Yes.
study on people who had dreams of departed loved ones, 80% of them or something had recovered from their grief or dealt better with their grief because of these dreams. Even if they didn't believe in an afterlife, having a powerful dream, which is an afterlife communication, was help them move on.
And let's face it, that's the only reason why I do this.
Yeah.
The only reason why I do this is to try and help someone who's wanting our services. I don't go looking for people. People find me.
See, I found her. She wasn't asking for this. She wasn't asking for it at all.
There's a
I
need.
found her
There's a
because
need.
I wanted to educate people about the healing work that's being done. But after I discovered the science, and, you know, I wanted to find someone, and I hope that you will all have been inspired by Claire, because going to her demonstrations, everybody leaves feeling connected to something higher than themselves. And that is a gift. I know you say you don't feel special, but I think you are.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us here. It honestly means a lot to us. Look how busy it is. See, we're not all deluded and nuts, are we?
Look
We've
at
all
you,
got an
gorgeous
interest,
people
you know,
as well.
very intelligent people. So thank you, and I really hope you enjoy the book and engage with us. Keep this going.
Yeah.
Thank you.